Shows that I'm green here. Let me see. Okay. Next time we got to set this up so I've got like my end just ready, right? In the IT world we call this what do they call that? They call that like a hot standby, right? So that's like if one of the servers, this is like what the Bitcoin people should be knowing about, right? Because we're live right now, right? So actually we're not live. Hold on, let me see. I think we're live. Yeah, I got green bars. So my screen's not even refreshing. Can you see that we're live right now, Mike?
I'm trying to get it set up on my side as well.
It's called like it's called like a hot standby, right? And that's basically if one server goes down, the other one is already there, right? So you don't even have to turn it on; it's just ready. So there's like hot standbys, there's warm standbys, there's cold standbys. There's all this cool kind of stuff you can do. And we should be doing it, right? We should be getting these people that hold the lights for us to be doing this kind of hot standby work. So.
Very true.
But I still don't see the refresh on the page. I'm gonna see what's going on with this YouTube, but I see a green light, so I'm pretty sure that we're streaming like right now. So, do you see it coming?
All right,
in?
so I'm refreshing my page. Mm-hmm. All right, well, we are live, so I'm seeing it on my side. So we're good to go. So one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, because I can't even see it on my side.
So yes.
Yeah. Okay, so yes, welcome everybody. Sorry for these hiccups. I can finally see that we're live right now. Before anything, Mike and I were about to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving and tell everybody we are grateful for people sticking around with us, especially in moments like these. And it's funny too, Mike, because we get a lot of emails, right? Like people don't necessarily. Sometimes people just feel intimidated and they don't want to participate in the chat, but we still get the emails that come through, and a lot of them are hate mail, but some of them are encouraging, and we truly are thankful for that because we really do like the appreciation. We really, really do like the participation and just having the dialogues back and forth here.
So yes, I would agree.
Mm-hmm. So welcome everybody.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, I was just flipping through my windows here. Yeah, next time I'm going to be on hot standby, so we're just going to do it just like when that one Bitcoin node goes down, there's plenty more right there still keeping chugging, right? So, that's the whole concept of the hot swap, or just the hot standby. But anyway, so let's just jump right into it, Mike, since we're 15 minutes in and we've said nothing so far. Does that sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
I'll read them through the chat. See a lot of funny comments out there. So anyway, what do you have in mind, my friend? Let's go there. Let's take it there.
Okay, and I think it says chat's disabled. No, wait, I'm still looking at the old stream, Mike. This is
you look
amazing.
At that. But yeah, I pulled up a fresh page. So yeah, I apologize for the technical difficulties on my part, but it happened. So, but anyway, we'll keep it moving.
We'll keep it rolling. Okay, so I want to start out with a few things here, and I'm going to have you doing the chat because for some reason YouTube is still not refreshing on my end.
Okay.
So basically I wanted to talk about one of my favorite topics today. And you know what my favorite topics are? My favorite topics are inflation. That's definitely one of my favorite topics. So let me pull this up here. Okay, so here's my page. Whoops, I just lost you though.
I'm still here.
Yep. There you go. No. Like it's there. I'm just going to slide over window to window. Okay, so the first topic is going to be about inflation. When we talk about inflation, one of the things that we talk about is asset price inflation. And that's the only thing that any other people want to talk about is asset price inflation. Like, it's the only thing that's gone up. We also point out things at the very high end, right? When we're talking about classic cars or these really expensive vintage bottles of whiskey and things like that. But one of the things is, just in the past 2 days, I have seen a lot of signs of what I would consider just inflation that's chewing in and digging in at the average person. So I'd like to give a few examples of those, right? So these are just things out of the last 2 days that I've seen, right? So this first one right here, it's talking about... Let me scroll here. Okay, over 75% of millennials may never be able to afford owning a home. And then this ties into something from... this ties into something from a couple years back, right? Which is where I'm show this tweet right here that says, from President Trump, home prices reach new all-time highs in August. So that was in October of 2017. So President Trump is talking about this as a good thing, right?
Yeah.
But, when we look at, what this article is talking about, well, it's a good thing, but it's a good thing for who? Because 75% of millennials will never be able to afford a home, right? I'd also like to just point one thing out about hypocrisy, because oftentimes one of the things I do is point out just the when we talk about he's a flip-flopping on a weak dollar and a strong dollar and this and that. Well, the same thing can be said about, the prices of things. So President Trump was ecstatic that home prices hit all-time, record highs in October or whenever that was in 2017. Well, look at this one, right? So here's something else, though. Wait, that's not the right one.
So watch this. So let me touch on that for a second. So in regards to the article there, I came across the article as well, and so it's twofold, as you just mentioned. It's great for homeowners because it gives them that sense of their net worth increasing because they count their home and all the toys and whatnot as assets more than likely. And so it's beneficial for those. So I would assume President Trump's tweet on all-time highs, don't you feel wealthier? Hint, hint. And then for the younger generation, millennials, those that are looking to get into the housing market, they're the ones that's being priced out because of the increase in the nominal price of housing. So it will benefit the so-called owners now until you try to sell it. Of course, you're going to find out what it's really worth. But then for the younger generation that are caught up in the idea of owning a home as a part of the American dream that they were also sold, then they're going to have problems because now it's a little bit beyond their reach, ideally, for the average millennial. So, it's a pro and con for either generation. So, but ultimately, a higher price doesn't determine value, especially if you can't sell it to someone that's, We'll keep it.
Yeah, and it's funny too because if you do you remember that Twitter archive thing that I was showing you several years back, Mike? Where it shows, or you can search any of the things that President Trump says going back to the whole time that he's been on Twitter. If you go back in 2012 and 2013, it talks about you better buy houses now because they're going up. This is the bottom. That's it. Buy this. You don't want to miss out on this ride. So it's so yes, this is exactly what people who own homes want, but people who are looking to get into homes, this is not something they want. And this is just one of the things I want to point out just about the conflicting messages and the mixed signaling here. Because here's a tweet from just this year, January 1st, as a matter of fact. And there are countless examples of these tweets, Mike, right? But this tweet from President Trump says, do you think it's just luck that gas prices are so low? So he's basically saying they're so low because of me, right? You got to look at the context of all the other tweets he's been saying about gas prices and oil. But he's saying, do you think it's just luck that gas prices are so low and falling? Low gas prices are like another tax cut. So think about that, right? Why are high gas prices bad, but low gas prices are good? Furthermore, let's substitute gas with the word home, and let's hear how this sounds, and let's analyze that, right? Do you think it's just luck that home prices are so low and falling? Low home prices are like another tax cut. And that actually would be true. That would be true, right? Because think about this. If your house costs less, you're paying less in taxes. That is, in fact, that's not like a tax cut. That, in fact, is a tax cut, right? And then there's many other implications as well, which comes down to the whole concept of affordability and people just being able to buy and get into these homes, right? So,
and if I might add, lower cost overall leads to more savings for homeowners so that they can accumulate a little more on the back end for their own livelihood. So it would be counterintuitive to the whole idea of a debt system where it only expands if you go into debt. So houses prices dropping is not good because it'll force people to save. Saving is not good because our economy will come to a complete halt if there weren't people willing and needing to go out and finance everything.
Well said. Yep, that's a good point right there. Exactly, too. So, it's just inflation is real, and it's a real problem, not just for the rich, not just for asset places, not for just these one-off crazy examples of something going for a ridiculous place, but for regular people, right? Regular people. Talking about 75% of people can't save up even 10% for a down payment on the median home price. And that, that's not 10% is not a lot to put down on a house, really.
Right. But also, I saw articles recently where they have it where you don't have to put down anything And there's certain programs, I want to say it's in the USA, I'm not 100% sure, but parents can use the equity in their home, a percentage of it, as a down payment for their child's purchasing of a house as well. So they're spinning out all types of new products to encourage younger people to get into debt, even though the pricing, as this article is showing, is well beyond their reach. And yeah, so they're going to spin off more products to help more people get houses as the prices continue to go up, if it continues to go up.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. And I actually see the chat now, so I'm good to go. I'm 100% ready to rock and roll here, Mike. So this is good. So do you want to take a second to address the chat since this started off all haphazard today?
Sounds good. So I'll check in with the chat. And so for those that are just coming about the stream, we had some issues earlier, and so we're back. And so Mr. Half Dollar is hosting this afternoon. But I want to acknowledge a couple people real quick and just thank you for your presence. We got John, we got Harry, we got Mateo, we got Gun Fan, and I see a couple of thoughts out there we got to definitely touch. If you guys have any questions or any other articles or things you want to touch on, put in the chat and highlight at Silver Doctor, so we'll see it and definitely comment on it and go from there. And then, of course, the phone lines are still available if you guys want to chime in and share your thoughts. I forgot the phone number off the top of my head, so Mr. Half Dollar, if you know it, you can share it with them.
I do know the phone number. It's 567. Hold on a second. Here we go. 567-336-0844. And I'm
Watch
just
going to drop that in the chat. Yep. And so it should be good to answer on my side. So yeah. So as you guys can see,
be a fun one to try. And I'm going to do all caps. Not that I'm yelling, but just like phone lines are open. And I'm doing it in all caps because it's like a Thanksgiving miracle that we were able to save this live stream. Like, so that's good. So we got some people looking after us today.
Now watch this. Before we get into our next subject matter or continue on where we're at, someone in the chat with a very different name or Twitter, what's it called? Twitter handle or whatever, or if you use YouTube, whatever. It says, "Would you address the missing 21 trillion?" So it looks like they're wanting us to comment on the 21 trillion. And so would you be interested in sharing your thought, or would you like for me to go first?
Yeah, I got some thoughts to share on that, so I'll leave it up to you. If you want to kick it off, or you want me to here?
All right. So I don't mind touching on it. And so, 21 trillion of what we've been told based upon Professor Skidmore. So I'm sure everybody saw the Greg Hunter interview this past weekend. And so his team is the one that came about that information based upon all the record keeping and lack thereof based upon governmental expenditures. Okay. So 21 trillion is what has been reported to this date. And so my thought is whether the 21 trillion is accounted for or not, it's one of the things, what will that really do with this current mess we're in now? And so that 21 trillion, if it's off book record keeping and mishandling of funds, that 21 trillion is a small number in comparison to what the total could be. I would be willing to bet it's a lot greater than 21 trillion because that's just what we are able to see. Imagine what's behind the scenes, especially when it comes to the central bank's balance sheet and lack thereof, and the fact that they can just create out of nothing into something. They can create whatever they want and call it an expenditure of whatever kind because the dark money or the black books, it's infinite because we don't know as a public. So I'm not all bent on trying to find where the 21 trillion went because it's probably being used to prop things up and will be used to prop things up as long as possible, or eventually and I'm real big on the idea. I'm hearing more about the space program. The fact that every nation seems to be racing to space officially now. For what? Where are they going with this space race? Because to my knowledge, there are no other planets that are inhabitable at this current moment. So that 21 trillion could easily be going towards expenditures for that, or who knows. But how relevant is that to right now and to you and I as we're witnessing this implosion of our monetary system? That 21 trillion doesn't go in my pocket at all. So that's why I don't tend to follow it much or really comment on it myself personally.
Yeah, that's well said. I kind of agree with pretty much everything you said there. Couple things I'd like to put in from my 2 cents here. I do think that it's way more than 21 trillion, right? 21 trillion is only what they were able to find just by like going through footnotes from the reports and stuff like that. And they weren't even able to go back because, I was listening to that interview and it's interesting because they were going off of the footnotes, right? And the footnotes say there's been an undocumented adjustment of this, right? So then they would go back and they ask, well, let us see what these are that are explained in the footnotes so we can actually see what this is for. And they're not getting any luck on that at all. So it's like, not only is it like sketchy, but it's like buried, and it's buried within the bury, if that even made sense. It's like they're hiding money inside of hidden money. I think it's way more than that, because here's the thing, right? And I don't want to talk about this too much. But war is racket, right? There's a reason why they say war is racket. That's true, right? It's literally true. You get a blank check, right, when you're in a state of war. And we've been in a state of war, basically for the last, call it 100 years off and on, definitely for the last 20 years straight, right? So the thing about that is, you've got a blank check, right? And military contractors are very expensive, and just so is the military in general, So I think that, because that's the thing, right? The 21 trillion they found from two agencies. One was HUD, and I don't think the other one was the Department of Defense. I actually think it was specifically to the Department of the Army. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe someone in the chat. But I don't think it was defense overall. I think it was just Army. It wasn't even everybody. It was just one branch, right? The Army. But here's how a few things of those go, because I was in the Army, right? You can, something happens, right? And something gets blown up. And guess what? There was a whole bunch of other stuff in there that got blown up with it. And all of a sudden it's an expense. We got to write it off, right? So we got to replace that. And we got to write the funds to replace that. Or you're just creating, whatever it is that you need to sustain these missions, because that's basically what it is it's a racket. The whole concept of war is to just pillage and plunder, for lack of a better word. So, I think most of it has been done with just spending on the war and the military-industrial complex, just enriching themselves even more so. And yes, I think that there's money being used to manipulate the markets, but I don't think that they're relying just on those 21 trillion in general, because I think that there's far more than that, because they have the printing press and the closed books. Does any of that make sense there, Mike?
Yeah, it does 100%, because, again, we'll no amount, and whatever they do trade and bring it to existence, all be pocketed and siphoned person who they are. We will never know. So don't spend all your energy focusing on something that you can't control you directly in this moment in time, where it's very important thing individual.
And
so we can move on to our next topic if you want.
Yep, because you cut out a little bit on that, but we're going to move on. Oh, we're still on the topic of inflation. That was only 1 point. I got 3 points when it comes to inflation, Mike. Let's see here.
Go ahead.
Okay, next one. Okay, so we did the one about the home. Now here's another one. This one's going to be right up your alley. This is, and let's see here. I got to slide you over to the screen over here now, and I got to... Okay, so this next one is, see if you can see this title. It says, middle-class families getting priced out of new American cars. Have you been following this at all? It's just a little blurb. But this is from 4 days ago. I just saw it yesterday. But it's just talking about just how ridiculous the prices of automobiles have become lately. And it's saying that on average, the price of an automobile, and I'm going to slide you down, and I'm going to move me over so people can see this here. But just on average, over the last 10 years, Americans are paying 38% more for a new car or a new truck than they were paying 10 years ago. And like when you break it down into some of the specifics, like if you're talking about like a Jeep, for example, or if you're talking about the Ford F-150, there's some specific vehicles that like have gone way above like 60 and 70%. And this makes total sense why we're seeing these 7 and 8 year loans, and why, I can't remember the average car payment, but it's somewhere like $550 or something like that right now. So this is just another one of these examples of this inflation where, this is not the high end. This is not asset prices, because the vehicle's not an asset. It's a durable good, right? So let me move on to the third point to keep it rolling here. And
Yep, go ahead.
this third point is an interesting one, and I'd like to talk on this for a second here. This says Americans simply can't afford lawyers anymore. This is an article that was just up this morning, but it got me to thinking about a couple things. Let's think about this for a second, right? This is not a product, right? This is a service, right? So a lawyer is like a service. That's the service sector. And it's just talking about the fact that this has several consequences. One of the consequences is that, people just can't afford to defend themselves, and that's usually where it goes. If a person can afford anything, it's because they're being the plaintiff and they're trying to get something accomplished, right? But if they're just a defendant and it's not a criminal case, if it's a civil case, they can't afford the lawyers. So this is leading me to believe a few different things. One of the things that's leading me to believe is there's going to be an oversupply of lawyers out there, right? Because if people aren't paying for these lawyers, you got to separate the wheat from the chaff. And there's going to be... So remember we're talking about like deflation, right? And like, wages are coming down. Well, yeah, but guess what? It's not for people at the bottom because those real wages have already been falling since the 70s. It's for people like this, right? And what's this going to do? This is going to have ripple effects throughout the entire economy. And furthermore... Another one of the points of the article, which is more subtle and more social in nature, is the fact that, when people can't afford these lawyers, they're just getting screwed over by the legal justice system because they can't afford to defend themselves. They can't accomplish what they could have accomplished if they could have otherwise had a lawyer. So, and then this is just another example of inflation, and it's just all around us. And we didn't even talk about healthcare. We didn't talk about college. We just talked about housing, cars, and the service sector, right? So what would you like to add to that, Mike?
Now, in regards to the whole lawyers aspect and the oversupply of lawyers, what's the name? Where you calling from? We lost him. Okay. So give us a call back. We'll get you on here. So I did put the number in the chat there. But having a glut of highly skilled individuals, such as lawyers, doctors. And so those people were always led to believe that those jobs will always be in high demand, which they technically will be. So you have more people entering into that line of work, probably more so for the wrong intentions. They want to probably make money, and so they're willing to go into debt, excessive debt, college loans, all the stuff like that. And so when you have lawyers that's not getting compensated in equivalent to the amount of debt they've taken on and the amount of time they put into all the additional taking the bar and all those additional years for their craft, you're going to have less interest for your average person to want to go to college, to study law, study to be medicine, because if there's no greater reward than the norm that puts them in a higher tier of society, what's the incentive really? Because most people technically aren't really concerned with the betterment of humanity as far as I want to save lives. They're more so like, I want to save lives, yes, but I want to make sure I'm comfortable and able to live my dreams as well. And so I think this next year, 2020, especially with this unemployment that's going to sweep through this country, I think everyone, of course, is at risk because it's one of the things where we were taught and told to do certain things. And those things have already they've already changed as far as the employment model and education model. Think about this. I believe, and this is probably going a little bit off topic, but I was watching another YouTuber and they were talking about the time when we're going to have to address the amount that it costs to go to college for our children, because the prices continue to going up, but the quality of service and the information being shared now is kind of obsolete, because whatever you want information wise, you can get on YouTube. You can how to whatever and get an understanding of it. And unless you're going into something where you need to be certified and specialized down to the T, then that's different. But on general, moving forward, university is going to have to adjust to the model of either you lower costs or people are going to say, I'd rather not go and I will just depend upon the government or something like that. So, I think that's the shift in the employment and education that's coming starting in 2020.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you were saying a shift in employment, and I was immediately thinking something else, and I'm glad you took it there because I want to add a point onto that too, because my wife and I go back and forth with this. In the past, and I'm sure you know this, right? You just didn't bring it up in this, but in the past, people would work like their whole lives in the same company, and that was like a goal and an aspiration. But, now people are going to have to be nimble, and they're going to have to move in and out. Last week, or maybe on Monday, we were talking about how it's important to have multiple income streams, just because the whole concept of employment in general, which also ties into the concept of education, has in fact changed over the years. So also what we've been promised with that respect, right? There's no more promise to go work for a company for 30 years anymore and then retire comfortably.
Yeah, I would agree. And so and that's what I've been thinking a lot about this lately. And with the ramping up of the machine learning and automation, I just automation in general. That's going to shift. That's going to shift the employment concept, and then the method in which our children are taught will be another shift. Because when it comes to teachers, right now we're witnessing, especially in my area in Chicago, there's teachers out on protesting every chance they get, saying they want more pay. And of course, it's only natural that you're compensated according to what you believe the value you're delivering. But yet, when you get into certain sectors, and if it's a job that's causing problems right now, it's going to be easier to automate it. And so I see virtual reality coming into play, where they're going to have virtual 3D machine teachers at the front of the classroom, and they're going to have laptops, and for sure at every desk where the virtual machine can interact with the kids. And so all that stuff is coming. And what that does do, it changes the way the job paradigm is currently going. And it's going to be the less need for teachers the way that we've had them to this point. And I think that's already in the works. I would imagine for sure out in the Asian area, because they're already far advanced in regards to those things I'm talking about. So it's just a matter of time before it comes here, I think.
Good points, well said. And the overall point with that, and then to tie it back in so we can close out this theme of inflation, is gold and silver are your hedges against that, right? Because what we're seeing is everything's going to be inflating away here eventually. And, what that means is, unless you have that escape ladder, you're going down when the theater burns up, So that's just to close that out. You want to take a second to recognize people in the chat here, Mike?
Yes. All right. So I see a lot of good thoughts there being shared amongst each other. And so we got Silvers like gold says education or training. And so I'm assuming we're talking about the current education paradigm model we're talking about. So not sure exactly if that was an exact question or what, but I would prefer the word training. And so as opposed to education, because it depends on the source of the information, may not necessarily be as educated as you would hope it will be. We got teachers can protest until the standard of education improves, of which they will do. But like always, when it comes to protesting, there's going to be more people protesting, but they're protesting to their own demise because they're asking for more. And it's the economy. It's the global economy. It's not necessarily the school district that's the problem. It's the fact they don't have any funding because of the expenditures, all the pension promises. I mean, it squeezes current budgets for today. And it so happens that teachers that are now expecting more pay, they happen to be innocent casualty of the current meltdown that's underway. So they can ask all they want for higher pay, but yet are they willing to give up more as far as more time, more dedication to the kids and stuff like that? So, to continue to demand more pay without delivering outright more value, it's a tricky situation.
And if you want to measure the value, well, the value is declining, right? It's just like the dollar. The quality, the value of the education system in the public schools in the United States is in decline, right? So we're actually losing value if we take out, it's just like someone said in the chat, or somebody graduating high school today, relatively speaking, more prepared or less prepared for college? Less prepared. So that value is going away, just like the value of the dollar.
Right. On the side note, and I'll just my last thought, and we can wrap this up because I know we can stay here forever. So when it comes to the value proposition of value delivered as a person, income earned in the city of Detroit where I'm at, there's news articles all the time, and Detroit happens to be a very worthwhile use case of where the value has diminished as the quality of or the deterioration of family in the city has left, whereas more single parent homes, out of all those problems, to where even the teachers are having issues with the kids because the kids, they're not necessarily being incentivized to go to school, apart from the fact they have to get up in the morning and go somewhere. And so the quality of education has diminished, but yet the classrooms now have more substitute teachers that aren't even teachers. They're not even qualified technically or even have a heart for children, but they're there for a paycheck. And just factor all those conditions. Those are results of a deteriorating economy based upon the monetary system. So it goes a lot deeper than just what we're being told now. And so unfortunately, the teachers that are picketing and protesting, they don't see that. They only see their immediate needs or lack thereof. And so, but let's change the topic. Go to something else right now.
Okay, here we go. We're going to something else. And if I can just find my cursor, we will get there. Okay, and I'm going to drag you across my massive monitor setup here to bring you back on screen with me. There we go. Okay, next
Got
topic.
3 or 4 monitors in front of you.
You ready for the next topic here, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Okay, which one are we going to do? Okay, well, let's just talk about a little bit of gold and silver since we haven't really talked about gold and silver yet today. And you might be thinking, well, why are we talking about gun sales if Half Dollar just said we're going to talk about gold and silver, because it ties into gold and silver. There's this article that came up yesterday, and it says gun sales surge amid fears of gun control proposals from 2020 Democrats. Now, this is what I'm thinking when I see this title. And I didn't even read it, and I don't even need to read it. But here's the thing, right? You know, this is telling me that the average person, the average guy on the street is starting to think that there's the real possibility that a Democrat imposing with that favors gun control, right, is going to be getting into office here next if during the 2020 election. So what's going on? Well, actually, sales, I think it said 10.8. I can see right here between the two of us on camera. Sales are up 10.8% from October 2018. So that's a pretty big jump right there, right? Imagine if gold and silver sales picked up 10% from a year ago. And that's why I wanted to tie it into this, because right now, gun sales, right, that's like, you know, flyer over America, right? That's the average person. That's the average Joe who is a Second Amendment supporter saying, you know, they're coming after the guns or they're trying to get more strict legislation, so I want to take care of this before it happens. Here's my point with that, and here's how I tied in with gold and silver. Right now, the smart money, right, the big money, the deep-pocketed money, they have no reason to think that, you know, one of these Democrats is going to get in at the 2020 election, right? Because what's happening? The stock market's going up and charging the record highs, right? But look at the Democrats' proposals, right? If the smart money thought that a Democrat was going to get in 2020, they will be doing the same thing with gold and silver right now. Because what are these proposals? Wealth taxes, right? It's taxes on billionaires. It's all this, you know, it's taxes on Wall Street. It's all this prohibitive stuff. So what does that mean? That means that in order to front run that because of what they think is coming, then people are going to move into gold and silver because that's the ultimate in privacy. It's the ultimate in, you know, secure, safe storage outside of the banking and financial system and outside the prying hands of an excessive government with an overly burdensome and arguably unconstitutional, you know, tax hikes and things of this nature. So my point there, just to wrap that up, because I probably went off on a tangent and made it more confusing than it really is, right, is that, you know, right now people are starting to say, wait a second, if a Democrat gets in, we need to start buying guns now. People have not yet started to say, wait a second, if a Democrat gets in, we need to start buying gold and silver now. But the people that the Democrat would affect the most when it comes to money are people with big pockets. So you're talking about the institutional investors, the smart money, the deep-pocketed people moving into gold and silver. So we're not talking about your retail stacker, right, which would be your retail gun buyer. We're talking about big money here, Mike. And so far, big money's complacent. They think Trump's got it. He's a shoe-in, and there's no inclination whatsoever, right? So thoughts on that, Mike?
That is interesting there. And so, you know, one of the things that stood out the most is just the concept of taxation, to where if Trump gets in, or if Trump remains in office, he's going to have to roll out some type of tax cut for everybody, primarily geared towards the middle class, lower income individuals, for lack thereof, because that's going to be the people who are hurting the most as this economy continues to slow. Because whether that phase 1, phase 2, or the trade deal is done doesn't matter. What's been done has already been done. The pain is already present. Now the results will be evident after the holiday season. But so 2020, he's going to have to make some cuts in taxation, which therefore will increase the government deficits, all that good stuff like that. So that's going to it'll increase that. Whether or not Sanders or Warren gets in or whoever else, they're going to have to shift that tax burden onto the wealthy, as you referenced. And so when it comes to taxing the wealthy, it's not necessarily they're going to tax like Jeff Bezos, for example. Jeff Bezos' net worth is how many ever billion, but that's not actual what he has in his bank account to where that's what he has access to. That's what his net worth is. So the only thing they can do is tax the businesses, which necessarily will not. It will. The wealthy never want to probably give up more in taxation than they have to. So they want to pay the bare minimum. It's possible. So that's what Robert Kiyosaki, who's real big on touting that I don't pay taxes because I utilize the tax code to my benefit. And so no matter what, they're telling us that they're going to tax the wealthy, but they're not going to really tax them personally because the wealthy already have the loopholes configured to where their capital gains tax, their income tax, all that separation of taxation won't impact them the way that we're being told. So I don't think they're necessarily going to need to run to silver and gold because them as an individual, as a separate entity from their business, they're going to still be loaded with whatever they're sitting on to where, they're dependent upon their business to grow through this change to where I can see them actually staying out of precious metals a little bit longer into this whole, whether Trump wins or the Democratic Party wins, because they are operating from a different level when it comes to their income. So, so I can see basically what I'm saying is gold and silver prices might still not necessarily do a bid anytime soon because they're not dependent upon it, in my opinion.
Could be. You make up some good points there, and we'll have to see, right? So that's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Because that is an excellent point, right? People who have money have the ability to do things to avoid whatever it is that they need to avoid, right? So whether it's having their money on other things that can't be taxed, or whether it's just flat out renouncing the citizenship, which have been done in record numbers, and just becoming a citizen somewhere else altogether. If you're a billionaire, if your net worth or whatever you're doing is in the high hundreds of millions or billions, it'll be worth your while, according to all the little travel and dual passports channels and stuff. I try to keep my eyes open to everything. It'll be well worth your while to already have a second passport, because you can buy one technically if you know what you're doing. And then you can allocate it and diverse and all that stuff like that, buy property here. I mean, so they're operating at a different level, so they're going to be fine. So that's one of the things where it's the average person, like the people watching this, and the people we've yet to reach, that need to realize the importance of metals. And so those are the primary people that need an ounce or two in their possession, as opposed to nothing. So yeah. And you bring up a great point, because think about this, right? A couple years ago, my family and I moved across the country. You know how much it took? How much it cost my family and I to move across the country, Mike? It cost $15,000 to move across the country out of my own pocket, right? So this is, just moving the family across the country. So this hits that point home exactly, because, not everybody's got 15 grand, right? Like, what is it? Like half of Americans don't even have $500. So the thing is that, people oftentimes don't have the means to even change their situation, to avoid the situation, or to even get out of that bad situation anyway. So yeah, you bring up some good points there. And, on top of what you said, so it's like everybody is going to have, this kind of protection in gold and silver, not just for the inflation, but also for, the potential tax grabs that are looking like they're coming all around here, Mike.
Yeah, and so to not change subject, I'm thumbing through the chat as you're explaining and giving us the story, and so a comment that stood out was there's a lot of people still, like, so Tom, I appreciate the comment, Tom says Trump in 2020, no one else will win, and so my thing is, if Trump wins or he loses, what exactly are you expecting? And so that's kind of like where, if he does win, what would he do? What are you expecting that doesn't win? So it's one where I think a lot of people have become attached to either the candidate themselves, or just the idea that position will make a real true impact on your life in a positive sense. I mean, it more so will impact you negatively than it will positively, because once again, the person is in that position. Trump is going to be good whether he wins or loses. He's going to leave wealthier than he came in, like every other president does. So it's more so smoke and mirrors as far as what they're actually doing for the public in general. And so I'm not one of the people that says Trump needs to win or else, or whoever. How will that impact your life directly and then indirectly? It's going to be more indirectly, from what decisions they make now and how they impact our future as a nation, yes. But like tomorrow, when you wake up in the morning, what would Trump winning or not winning do for you individually? So I thought I just want to share that because,
Yeah, well, that's a good point, because, I think that, at this point, it's the Titanic, right? And the Titanic sinks, and we know how that ends. So there's really not much that can be done until this crisis and until this disaster happens. Hopefully it doesn't get as dark and, nasty as I think it's going to get. But, I don't think that anything is going to make a difference until we have the crisis. Ready to move into the third topic here, Mike? We'll keep it rolling.
Let's take it there.
Okay, let's take it here. Let me get my. Oh, you're gonna like this one. This is our Fed dandy here. I gotta slide you over to the next screen, and click that. Here we go. This is our Fed Dandy Kashkari. So I figured you would appreciate this. This is from just today. And I'm going to read this whole entire tweet, and let's just talk about this for a second, Mike, okay? So here's Kashkari, and he was retweeting somebody else, and we don't even need to retweet the other thing. We just need to talk about what Kashkari said. So he says, I should just pin this tweet. Once again, someone, right? Somebody, anybody. I mean, hello, calling the Silver Doctors live, right? I mean, I even tweeted that out, but he's not going to do that. Once again, someone please explain to me how higher rates, which will mean slower job and real wage growth, will help low-income families. Answer, they won't, right? So I look at this and I'm just thinking, man, this is just totally sick and twisted and just flat out backwards, right? First of all, just talking about slower job and wage growth. Well, if people have higher rates, they can save and they can earn an interest on their saving, and then they can invest that money in themselves to be productive to earn more wages in the future. That's one thing. Another thing is, slower job growth. Well, we need the creative destruction anyway. We talk about zombie corporations and we talk about all this stuff, and it's not like the companies are investing in plant and equipment anyway. They're just buying back their shares, and that's not helping anyway, right? So that's three or two, or I don't even remember what number that was. But when it comes to, higher rates will not help lower income families. Yes, they will, because the last thing you want someone to do who can't afford to get a loan is to go out and get a loan, right? I mean, so it doesn't matter what the interest rate is, right? If you don't have the money, don't be getting the loans. So, if you can buy this Apple iPhone every single year and pay zero interest on it, hey, there you go, you got an Apple iPhone every single year. But, if you wanted to buy the Apple iPhone and you had to pay 29% interest on it, they're not going to do that, Mike. So, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's just the concepts from the Federal Reserve bankers. And that's the thing, right? It's like, once again, someone please explain it. Well, we explain it every single day, right? It's just that they won't listen to it when we explain it because that's not what they want to hear because they know that they're wrong. So I'll let you go ahead and take that, Mike.
Yeah, I think the whole... the division or the disconnect amongst the central banking group itself is very interesting because Neil Kashkari is sharing his thoughts. Jerome Powell, everybody got their own spin on things, but I'm assuming they all have to know that they are scrambling and that the public can begin to start sensing that they're scrambling to hold this thing together. And so it's one of the things where, once again, you take it for what it's worth, but I wouldn't hold much in anything they say because they all have to keep the narrative of everything is fine. So whatever he says, it's all in the best interest of the banks, not necessarily the people. And then as you was reading the quote, and I looked at the tweet on the screen, what happened to the concept of capital? And let me know, I could be wrong, but capitalism was originated because there was always capital in the bank to use. Like it was always savers. The whole idea of saving was to be able to put it out into the market and let people borrow it from you and return something to you. So if no capital, take away the ism, what are we, bankism now? Like, repoism or credit extension, ism. So capitalism itself is being destroyed. They're no longer are able to save. And if you are a saver, you're punished. But if you go into debt, you're rewarded. You see what I'm saying? So that right there, disconnect, let me know that this is all backwards and it can't remain forever.
Yeah, and we're close, right? Because when we were growing up, the phrase was cash is king. And this goes on just exactly what you literally just said right now, right? Cash is king. What does that mean? That means that if you save, you get rewarded, right? That means that you can go in there and you can offer cash and you can get a better price because you worked hard to save that and you can turn that into real things. But now it's totally, completely backwards. Now if you got cash, it's like it's a pain in the butt because they want to go ahead and finance you, So it's like, or just the whole concept of the way that things, so you don't get that discount with cash. You only get that discount now if you're using credit, right? So, spend 30% interest so that you can save 2% on that purchase, right? So it's just a totally backwards world that we live in. But the thing that really frustrates me about it is that, when Kashkari says something like this, the point is that what he says gets out into the mainstream, right? So people think, when they read this, they think, how will higher rates help low-income families? The answer is they won't. And then everybody's like, oh my God, we got to help low-income families, so we can't have higher rates. But that's completely backwards,
Mm-hmm.
So it just goes. It's frustrating in that sense because people will not understand what the real signaling is here.
Right, and it doesn't do any good at this current point to attempt to raise rates, because if they do, the system will implode, and if they keep it where it's at, they can try to squeeze out some more. But unfortunately, the global conditions causing the value on it's from start where, of course, they let business practice bad behavior be punished real.
You're cutting out. You're cutting out on us big time, Mike. We missed like half of that there.
All right, I'm gonna shut my mouth. Keep going.
Okay, so go ahead and summarize that in like 10 seconds, because I think that the signal's back good. I see everything moving like with your eyeballs and stuff. So.
Yeah, so I apologize for that. But for those, if you didn't hear me, I'll go down a whole other rant. So we can move on to the next topic.
Well, the next topic I think is just getting ready to dial it back here, since we had some hiccups that's going on the 1 o'clock hour. Did you want to let's do a final, like, addressing people in chat if anybody had any other questions
yes,
or comments that they would like to bring?
Definitely. So if you are watching still, it looks like we have approximately almost close to 200 people tuned in. So I appreciate those that have been able to stick around through the adjustments. Those that, if you came late to the party, then you don't know what we're talking about, so never mind. But if there are any thoughts or questions in the chat, highlight at Silver Doctors. We'll touch on it before we dial back, and then enjoy Thanksgiving season. And one thing I want to do for those that are watching, just engage in a little participation from you guys. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving, and so it's a time to really reflect on what you're thankful for. And I think we do still have a lot to be thankful for in the land of the free thus far, and the land of opportunity still. And so if you guys want to share what you guys are grateful for in the chat, let me know. I'm curious to find out. And so, of course, everyone has different things to be grateful for, down to the smallest thing. But it's always good to publicly acknowledge what you're grateful for, just to show, that you are conscious of it. So, and then any other questions, let us know.
Uh-huh.
Gun Fan says Black Friday deals from SD or you're fired.
Oh.
And so go ahead and share them that deal that's going on the pre-64 coins. I'm assuming that's still going on. Let them know that deal. Put that on the screen if you don't mind.
Yeah, let me get the okay. I see what you're saying. I'm still
Christopher Rodriguez. I'm thankful for to hear. Appreciate that.
Man, that is a heck of a deal right there. I'm looking at, Mike. Look at that, $19.99 for a double legal right there in very fine condition. That is wow. That is a heck of a deal right there. Because that's pre-33 gold. That's what we were talking about the other day when we were talking about how there's such low premiums right now. But still, that $25 face value at spot. I mean, you can't beat that deal at all. And they don't tell me the deals that they're going to have, right? It's not like I know what kind of deals they're going to have on Friday. They keep that stuff, man. It's like they keep that stuff like tightly guarded secret. So I'm only seeing what everybody else is seeing at the same time, right? So
yes, sir.
But here's the thing, right? You cannot get any better than $25 worth of face value at spot, right? I mean, you can't get any better than that, because what's the only thing that's better? Selling at a loss and making it up on volume. But I don't think SD Bullion is going to do that.
Yeah. So I'm reading through the chat, and we got some comedians out there viewing us. Someone says, I'm grateful for my Whopper, but not as much as my wife is. Thankful for you guys, how you provide. Francisco, I appreciate that. And so, friends, how long before a silver shortage? What are your thoughts on that? How long before a silver shortage?
You got to take like the Silver Institute at face value, and that they're not really like advocating silver in and of itself at like a level that I would like to see them advocating for silver at. But if you take their numbers at face value, silver production is actually down 1% this year, right? If you take their numbers. And they literally just released this report. We got it up on Silver Doctors. I'd have to search it, so I don't know exactly where it is. This was like last week when this report came out. So silver production is actually down, right? And then the other thing is that, people talk about, And then the other thing that report said is people talk about, when there's a global slowdown, which we're in right now, then industrial demand for silver is going to go down. But they're saying that no, that's not happening this time because the industrial demand for other industries such as electronic vehicles and solar panels and stuff like that, that's taken up the slack for the other industrial demand that would be waning. So that's another thing. And then I think the third thing, and I'm just going off memory here, Mike, but the third thing is that what they're saying is that like last year, or the production is flat, but I can't remember if that was last year, what they're estimating for the rest of this year, or how that worked in there. But yeah, so the fundamental scene is there, right? They're producing less silver every single year coming out of the mines for the last few years now. And just on top of that, the industrial demand is not waning like people think it is as we're entering this global slowdown because of the rise of other industries, right? Because silver, other than oil, that's, your second most useful thing in the world, right?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like going around in circles there. But did you have some things you wanted to say about that too?
Yeah, no, I would add on to yours is that I don't think there'll actually be a physical shortage where there'll be none available for the average retail and purchase. I don't like to even use the word investor because, you're basically redeeming paper for silver, which is real money. So there'll always be silver, I believe, that'll be available for everyone if you want it. It's just a matter of what price.
Yes.
And that's the biggest issue. It's going to be hard for bullion dealers, coin shops, all those primary retail mid-level stores between the public and the silver market to transact at the price that we're currently at for much longer. As things around us implode, it's going to be hard to keep price at silver 1706 plus a dollar premium or whatever. They're going to have to, as a business, they're going to have to come up on those premiums, which will then make the true silver price and gold price a lot more expensive for your average retail purchaser. So it's one of the things where there'll always probably be enough. It's just a matter of how much paper will it cost to get one in your hand? How much paper will you have to give in order to get one in your hand? It's going to be the issue heading into 2020 and beyond. So the supply is plentiful, I believe. I believe God put enough silver and gold to meet all demands. It's just a matter of how easily accessible will it be and how worth it will be for company miners to go down, dig deeper, and get it out at the price it is now. It's not real profitable, so you might hold off a little bit, as you referenced.
Yeah, and I think SRS Rocco just had an article a couple days ago talking about the number one producing silver mine in Mexico just closed permanently because they have depleted the resources or something like that. Again, I'm going off memory, but yeah, I mean, and then just what you're saying, right? Because, that's the whole point of a dealer, right? They're like a market maker, right? Because people are always wanting to buy gold and silver for whatever reason, and people are always wanting to sell gold and silver for whatever reason because, as you say time and time again, we're talking about money, right? Gold and silver and money. People always have a need to save money. People always have a need to spend money, and that'll never go away, right? So there will always be available, but it comes down to that question of price. Let's read a couple. It looks like let's keep it going for just another minute here, Mike, because it looks like a couple people actually did reply with what they're thankful for. So let's give a couple shout outs and read a couple of those there, Mike.
All righty. I see some questions there. I see a specific question in regards to something about $15. And so let me see here. It says it's all very well. Big Whopper. Okay, long one. Get your weight up. We got many bullion dealers in the UK now have very little stock. Question from Taco Mahooligan. Says if you have $1,500 to spend, would you purchase gold or silver with it? My thoughts, my personal opinion would be silver. And so I would rather utilize that to get silver just because that is my preferred mechanism for wealth preservation in the short term. And then, of course, taking advantage of the ratio aspect as time go on, I would definitely be interested in doing that. So that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, and I would say that too. And, on top of that, the gold to silver ratio, right? The gold to silver ratio is screaming silver, right? Because if you feel that it's going to go to at least 40, and I think it's going way lower than that, but if you feel that it's going to go to at least 40, if you buy silver here, right? If you buy 80 ounces of silver, and if the ratio is going to 40, then that's an extra ounce of gold. Well, I mean, obviously you'd have to convert the gold into silver, right? Because you're doing the gold for silver to get the gold for silver to do the silver for gold later on down the line. But the point is, no matter where you start, you can, do the arbitrage with the gold to silver and come up with free money, right? And people say there's no such thing as a free lunch. But with the gold and silver arbitrage, there is such thing as free money, so that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But no, I mean, as far as my things so Jim, right? He said, I'm grateful to God for all the blessings he has given me. So often we forget to say thank you because we get wound up on our fear of surviving. And that's true, right? You know, you got to have some sort of higher purpose and some sort of higher calling, because not only that, but there's just a lot of sick and evil people out there. And unfortunately, they're the ones that dominate the world. So there's got to be some resistance to that somewhere, Mike.
Indeed. So yeah, in the case we'll probably got to end up getting about 50 minutes in, I believe, of back and forth today. So due to some technical issues earlier, it always doesn't it?
Oh, you're cutting out on me again, Mike.
Yep, so that means it's time.
That means it's time. So I'll go ahead and wind it down here. I'll sign it off, even though, you know, you're the one that's actually the cool one at signing it off, and I just bumble and fumble my words here. But anyway, so same time next week, right? 12 o'clock. We're back on our normal schedule and everything. You know, keep checking Silver Doctors. We got a regular post through this week. We got a regular, you know, I'm going to be writing my Friday wrap tomorrow, and I still think that the pressure is coming on gold and silver. People got excited yesterday, right? And they're like, oh, look at this, gold and silver is surging. But I don't think that, you know, the cartel is done here. I think that they're going to come in, because if they can smash, they will smash, right? And I think that they can smash, because yesterday's price move on gold and silver, well, silver especially, right? That was on low volume, right? So what's that telling me is they can just drop a couple bombs. Don't even have to be that many, but because of the low volume, they can just drop a couple bombs and force the selling. So I think that there's some good opportunities here. Be looking out for those Black Friday deals. Definitely, I'd be all up on that with that $1,500 on that silver at spot, because I mean that's no premium at all. That's like, wow, that's amazing deal right there. But anyway, thumbs up if you like the video. I got to figure out how to move my thumb backwards here. And we appreciate everybody tuning in today. So come back. We'll see you on Monday. We're going to have our hot swap ready in case that something happens. And until then, keep it real. Peace.